From blueprints to booming businesses, from groundbreaking to grand openings, this is Beyond the Blueprint. Join host Brad Howard as he takes you behind the scenes of growth and development in Mooresville, Lake Norman, and beyond. We're talking with the decision makers, the planners, the visionaries shaping our communities, giving exclusive insight into what happens before, during, and after projects that define our region. The future is being built right now. Let's go beyond the blueprint.
Good Friday afternoon. This is Beyond the Blueprint on WSIC. I'm Brad Howard, and thank you to those listening on the radio, tuning in on 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, 1400 AM, or if you're watching on social media or at WSICnews.com or on the WSIC News app. If you drove anywhere near I-77 this week, you already know the ramp closures are here, the orange cones are multiplying, and your commute probably got longer. But the big story isn't construction, it's what comes next. So Charlotte just approved $37.9 million to start funding the design of the Red Line, a commuter rail that could one day run to Mooresville. Today we're going to talk about that Red Line and what it means for Lake Norman commuters. The I-77 toll lanes, both the ones Centra already built and the ones being proposed. Why Iredell County needs louder voices at the regional planning table, where Charlotte holds 42% of the vote, and the NCDOT division split that puts our district in two different bureaucracies. We'll dig into how the state actually funds transportation, what NC10 accomplished, why your local elected leaders need to show up at the CRTPO and LNRTC meetings, and whether the growth pounding this region will ever get the infrastructure it demands. We'll start right here at home in Iredell County with Senator Vickie Sawyer and what's coming down the road. So welcome.
That's a great lead-in. Thank you, Brad Howard, for having me here.
Thank you for being here.
That was wonderful. It was fantastic.
So all things traffic, all things transportation, all roads lead to you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. I think I'm on the same roads that everyone else is. I've been enjoying, little traffic snafus, although I have a little different perspective. So when I first got elected to the Senate, I didn't know that I wanted to focus on transportation. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So I was sitting, now I lived at that time behind Lake Norman High School. So if you're familiar with 150, you know how congested that is.
There's no traffic near Lake Norman High School.
Not one bit.
If you're on Dooley Road or Perth, no traffic whatsoever.
None. And
especially at 3 o'clock in an afternoon on a school day.
Yeah, none. Oh my gosh. Or Football Friday night. I know. It is. For those of you who don't or aren't familiar with Lake Norman High School, it was built in a great area, but unfortunately that area only has one entrance in and one entrance out. And when you have a student body of 1,900 students, plus all of those staff that is a lot of congestion in one small area.
Yes,
and
it is.
I just happened to live behind it. It was great. So I was, again, stuck in traffic. Recently had been elected and appointed and frustrated because I was trying to get out of town to get to Raleigh. And I'm like, who do I call? Who do I call about all this traffic? Who do I complain to? And then I looked around all the cars around me and I was like, oh, crud. These people are going to call me.
That's right.
They're going to call me and they should.
Lead to you.
That's right. That's what you said. So at that moment, I was like, well, I've got the senator gig now.
Right.
And my neighbors are going to expect for me to do some things with this. So let's learn about transportation. And that's where I started down this road. And I'm so happy that we are, because a lot of things that you're seeing now, yes, I understand those orange barrels are everywhere.
They are.
That can be frustrating. But also it's progress. Because Brad, we are both, you're native from here, to this area. Yeah. I've been living here since 1998. Again, I'm from Winston-Salem. We're both UNC Charlotte grads.
That's right.
We actually, I think, was it a Latin class or it was in UNC Charlotte? We had one class together, I recall. And the only reason why I remember this.
That was the German class.
Was it German?
It was German.
I think, or Latin.
Latin.
In the summer.
No.
Well, all I remember is a young Brad Howard. For you listeners, I got to tell you this little quick story. A young Brad Howard, we were a Pike, correct?
I was.
Yes. So I was a Chi Omega. He was a Pike. We really didn't ever hang out because he was way too cool for me. No. And I remember he had a really nice car. And We never talked.
Yeah, that's funny.
And we had a great time. But UNC, go Niners, right?
Yeah,
Go Niners.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have been in this area, lived in both small business owners. So traffic is a huge concern.
It is.
And we have been really at the butt end of a lot of decisions from Raleigh area in transportation for a long, long time.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, they neglected us. I mean, the eastern part of the state got all the roads, and we suffered.
And you remember during that time, and a little bit after we graduated, 485 was a big issue. And for years,
it wasn't built back then because you had to. I know from here we had to meander through the country to get to school.
Yeah, that's right. That's not the country anymore, by the way.
No, it's not.
It's
houses now.
It's houses and everything. But yeah, so if you recall, like after that, the 485, and for the longest time, the connector around Charlotte only did the southern end. In other words, that 485. But for some reason, the north end was never built until...
It was the one that should have been built first.
Correct.
We can talk about why I believe it was done the other way.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Can we get our little tinfoil hats on?
Hats on.
Okay, let's do it. This conspiracy theory by Brad Howard.
Development interests that had land out in the areas that developed first. The people that were involved in in Charlotte and the long range planning of Charlotte, and just connect the dots and go from there.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense. So, we're looking at you, Ballantyne area. But for so long, there was just this miscommunication or non-connection or actually, quite frankly, abandonment of our concerns in North Charlotte and Iredell County. And that 485 loop did not get built until, remember, Bev Perdue. So Bev Perdue came around and campaigned that she was going to build it.
Right.
Didn't happen.
Nope.
Thankfully, Governor McCrory got in and that whole area.
And he actually got us a lot of things that people don't give him credit for.
Yeah.
They beat him up over the toll lanes, but he did so much more.
Yeah, and we'll talk about what you just mentioned with that eastern part of the state. So for so long, it was if you are a powerful lawmaker in Raleigh or the governor, then you direct where the road funding will be.
Right.
And the eastern part of the state had reigned supreme for 100 years in all things that were money for transportation. And so we kept on sending the money.
And for people that aren't from here,
right,
they will not appreciate that. But if you're from here, you'll know for decades and decades, and I know my entire life until the last decade, we got nothing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a bit. And yet we were under Hugh McCall's leadership and a lot of forefathers in the Charlotte business region that, got things like the Panthers and the Hornets and banking and established us as still to this day the number 2 financial hub in America. Those folks were very, very strong in making Charlotte region what it is today.
Right.
But unfortunately, they connected on everything except for the darn transportation because we had some very powerful lawmakers from Eastern North Carolina. And when you leave Raleigh and you go to certain areas, then you will see these beautiful black ribbons of road with hardly anybody on them.
I know. Once you leave Raleigh, you go to Greenville. I mean, just you head out to the, through the hinterlands and beautiful roads.
No traffic.
No traffic.
Well, I know we got to get going, but that's what Governor McCrory did. So he was the one that got in there and through the help of the legislature established, and something I want to talk to you about, the 10-year construction plan called the STEP. So it's a 10-year plan for all construction in North Carolina for roads, and we all have to compete for the same pot of money.
We do. And on that, we're going to talk real quick. And you are the chairman of the Senate Transportation Committee.
One of them, yes.
One of them,
yes.
One of them.
Yeah.
And co-chair of appropriations.
Correct.
So what does that mean? So for the listeners, before we go into the break, give us a quick push as to what that role really means.
So any time that you buy gas, then there is a gas tax collected at the state and federal level. Also, when you renew your driver's license, you get to all of that goes to fund transportation.
Right.
Then I get to, along with the House, come up with the plan on how to spend the money you send us.
Right.
And then we just slide the checkbook over to the DOT and pray that they do good things with it.
Right.
That's what happens.
That's what happens. That's the truth. And we'll be right back with Senator Sawyer. I'm Brad Howard, and this is Beyond the Blueprint. Howard. We're joined today by Senator Vickie Sawyer, and we're talking about infrastructure, and we're going to talk about growth and how in politics and in regional development, how everything comes together. We'll touch on the red line and some other topics. But here we are. North Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the country. The Charlotte Metro is gaining over 100 residents a day. Iredell County alone is up 11.51% since 2020. We have over 207,000 people that live in the county. Erosion and sediment permits are up 29%, parcel count 9%, which means subdivisions are occurring. You look at those numbers from Raleigh, and what does it tell you about the infrastructure challenges that we're facing? And I know we talked a little bit about you living off of 150 and having to deal with that traffic. And before we answer this question, several months ago I had Bill Thunberg on, and we were talking about the first time that the 150 project was discussed about widening was 1987. So we are in 2026. So you cannot blame Senator Sawyer for these road problems. You can't blame the current commissioners because it takes that long to build a road in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating, correct? It really, really is. And there's a lot of things that I'm working as a transportation chair on, and how do we streamline the construction process through some policy changes?
Okay.
I know that's not necessarily where you were going with that question, but I think it's really
We're
important.
just looking for an answer.
Oh, I'm a politician. I never answer a direct question. No, so tell me the question again. So I want to make sure I'm going to answer you honestly.
So we were talking about how fast the parcel counts are up. Erosion control permits are up, which means we're growing, right? It's just a data point that says we're growing. We're growing at the rate of, in the Charlotte MSA, about 100 residents a day. You know, in an earlier episode, I had that exact breakdown. I think it's Iredell County is growing by, or Mooresville is growing by 16 residents a week.
Oh, wow.
I believe.
Wow.
I had it broken down by about every single town.
That's great data.
Mooresville was 16 per week. Half of that was in the corporate limits, and the other half was in the surrounding areas.
Okay.
So, just a data point when considering everything going on.
Right.
So what does it tell you about the infrastructure needs we're facing and how long it takes to get a road, which is where I was going with that.
Yeah. No, thank you for the recap on the question. It tells me a lot. One, although growth is frustrating for some, it is a blessing for all. And I say that because if you go down those beautiful ribbons of road in eastern North Carolina, but you look at a Kinston or a Goldsboro, you look at Tabor City, you can look at, all of these other areas where growth has passed them by.
Right.
Their tax rate is double ours.
Correct.
And they have no health care. So they have some health care, but not easy access to it. There are some women who don't even live within an hour and a half of an OBGYN for pregnancy.
Wow.
So you have a declining population, you have increasing costs, you have local governments that can't, even fund their basic things like police and EMS. And again, as I said, healthcare is an issue. So where I lament the traffic, and I get that, it's a problem that can be solved.
Right.
Whereas some of those areas, they are in generational decline and are losing population. And that is not a problem that can be easily solved. No. And it's really, really tough. So in saying that, I will say that, one, the way we plan and construct roads is archaic. Mm-hmm. Two, there are some exciting new delivery modes of transportation that don't deal with just concrete and asphalt. That really need to be explored. I think it's time in transportation across the United States is really ripe for an industry disruptor.
Okay.
And there are some things that I've talked about this on my show over and over again to anybody who will listen, but Elon Musk has a great company called The Boring Company.
Yes.
We went out to Vegas. I actually went to it. I saw the manufacturing. It is fantastic what they're doing, how fast they're doing it. Those are the market disruptors that we really need to be reviewing and looking to the future. Mm-hmm. I know people joke about the Jetsons, but flying cars are coming.
They are.
I mean, and why do we continue to look at old technology for the same problem? Because it's just not working.
And I do like the concept of the Boring Company and what they're doing. And I don't know if there's a gentleman here locally that has a nice presentation. I don't know if you've sat through it or not.
I have.
Okay. He's on the right track, I think.
He is.
It's a lot more cost effective. It's a lot more agile, and you can do a lot more with what he's proposing as opposed to a train.
Correct.
At a fraction of the cost.
100%.
Right.
So the newest iteration of the Boring Company's machine will build, dig, and sheathe a 14-foot diameter tunnel 1 mile in 1 month.
And you can go in a straight line, and you can go perpendicular off of it.
Yeah.
So if you had, as opposed to the train going to Mooresville or Statesville or wherever, you go underneath that line, and you could bore, and you could have a right turn that went to the peninsula, that went to the point, that went to Denver. So Representative Jason Sain could finally get his chunnel.
Yes, his chunnel.
He's always joked about the chunnel for 20 years. He could get his chunnel.
He could get his chunnel, yeah. So those type of things are very interesting to me. That also concept solves a problem that fixed rail asset will never be able to do, and that's time management. So with a tunnel in this type of situation, you could get into Mooresville, conceivably go to the airport and never see the light of day. But then that means you wouldn't have to stop in Davidson, then Cornelius, then Huntersville, then Charlotte.
No, it's
it's a continuous stream.
Right, and there's two ways to do it. I mean, I know in Vegas you probably did it with just the Tesla that went through, but the one in his presentation showed something that looked like and I think Tesla makes them. They're like a bus or like a train car, but it's autonomous on batteries, and it has its points, and it goes where it's supposed to go.
Now, I don't know this because, Elon and I will be friends one day, but we're not yet. But one day he's going to hear my voice, and
that's right.
He's going to be my friend. A lot of the reasons, what I've read for the chassis for his truck, even though it looks gargantuan and quite odd, some people love it, but I'm not, design-wise, it's different. Yeah. But the point was that they put that into production so that they could move forward and have the chassis frame for that vehicle that you're talking about.
I did not know that. So
I love it. But those are in the future, but here and now.
Right.
So what I'm working on a lot now is, first of all, funding for transportation. I know you want to talk about that later.
Yes.
Secondly, everything in government cannot be solved with money.
No.
A lot of times what can be solved in government is just good policy and good policy rework. We have an issue right now with the cost of transportation projects ballooning because the time it takes to actually construct them. Okay. One of the reasons, and the biggest time sucks, two time sucks in road transportation. One, utilities. And you know this, they are constantly a drag on the process. So back in the day, North Carolina wanted to electrify all of our farms. In order to do that, we gave over to the utility company right-of-way and access for free right-of-way so they could allow and put their lines within the public land, which arguably was probably a good idea at the time. Right? Some states actually charge rent for that. Some other states have actually make them purchase into yearly contracts. North Carolina is just not that way. So, but then when it comes time to actually build a road, you have to move all of those utilities.
Right. And it's not just the ones hanging up in the sky, it's the ones under the ground. And then it's coordinating with all the people. And then it's the ones hanging up there. There's lots of people leasing those additional, phone companies, whatnot, from the power company. A lot of coordination.
And a lot of that is capitalized, and the companies are using those as their own assets. So there is something that I've been working on, a few years now, but obviously utility companies are not very happy with me. But in Georgia and Florida, their UDO, they actually, every time they design a project, the DOT will also put into the cost of the project hiring a third-party utility contractor to move all the utilities at the same time.
That would be amazing.
Isn't that cool?
Can we do that here?
I've been pushing and pushing and pushing. Now, there are a couple of divisions across North Carolina that have already utilized this, and so forward-thinking division engineers, one being in District 8, which is in eastern North Carolina. Again, their utility movement arguably is a little bit easier because of their sand. But yeah, that is something that we really, really, really need to look at. I mean, in some instances, the utility movement will delay a project 18 months. By that time, they've lost the contract, they've had to rebid out the contract, the price, cost, and escalation, and then just general frustration. That is tons of money that the state is spending on no production, and that has got to stop.
I agree with that. So I didn't know that was an option, so I'm pulling for that.
Yeah, I am. It's just actually, arguably, if you look, the Department of Transportation already has that statutory authority. But that's a hard fight for them to pick up with the utility company. So they want us to redefine it in statute so that we can tell them to do their job. I mean, that's really what happens a lot of times with these bureaucracies is that well-intended people are afraid to think outside of the box and do something different. So they look back to legislators like myself who will take the hit.
And they say, take the hit and help make this better.
And you know what? I'll take the hit any day.
Yep.
I will absolutely take the hit any day.
I think it's a great idea. So back to that and the cost and the funding and the revenue, where that comes from. So as chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, what does that mean for your district, especially Iredell County, Mooresville, Statesville, Troutman, Davidson, Cornelius. How do you break down how North Carolina funds transportation, gas, tolls, federal money, bonds, and what has NC-10 accomplished?
Yeah, so the NC-10 real quick was when I first got to be the chair, I had tons of lobbyists coming.
Right.
And not just like garden variety lobbyists. I mean, like really, really very fancy lobbyists. Right. And I realized that they had been working in the transportation space for 25 years, and I'd been there 2.5 months.
Right.
So,
so you had some catch up.
I was like, okay. Yeah. So I knew that the one thing I am good at is facilitating groups. And so I put all those very high-powered lobbyists and special interest groups, going from Duke Energy to Southern Environmental Law Firm, anybody who was on opposite sides of issues, put them in a room, only gave them, they had to do their homework, and we came out with solutions. And each one of those working groups, and we had Republicans and Democrat senators represented. We did it Montessori school, so individual working groups. Each one of those groups had a senator that was leading them. Okay. Each one of those groups had a specific issue to solve. And I can promise you, and I'm so proud that of all those initiatives that we have, we got the first 4 of 10 already done, and I want to do the rest.
I love the concept. So you locked them all in the room.
Correct. Fight it out. Fight club, baby.
Yeah, and don't come out till you have the solution.
Right.
We need more of that in government.
I agree.
I mean, absolutely we do. Okay, we're gonna take a break. We'll be right back, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the red line. But in that discussion, let's talk about the boring company and how those could work in tandem, or how they work. All right. Senator Sawyer is on Beyond the Blueprint. We'll be right back. And we're back on Beyond the Blueprint. We're joined today by North Carolina Senate Transportation Chair and Co-Chair of Appropriations Transportation, Senator Vickie Sawyer. So, we've been talking about funding and everything else, but let's talk about a more controversial topic that bleeds off of the boring company conversation we had, is the red line. So I know Katz purchased the right-of-way from Norfolk Southern. Charlotte just approved $37.9 million to start the engineering design for the red line commuter rail line up from Uptown to Davidson. The city paid $91 million for the corridor. So what does that mean for Lake Norman, and what does it mean for? I think I know what it means between Charlotte and Davidson, but what does it mean for the whole corridor they purchased? Yeah.
So and actually nerded out one night and I read the purchase contract.
Right.
And it is the weirdest thing. So they really didn't purchase per se. Well, it's almost like a triple net lease, but the landlord is still the Norfolk Southern. So at any point in time, if Norfolk Southern wants to do a new rail or put any kind of not commuter or passenger, but freight on there, then they can definitely just jack up the whole thing and say, well, you're going to have to go around us because now we have a new guy who wants to use a little bit of spur off of this. And
they left that out of the detail that was in the newspaper.
Yeah.
So Norfolk Southern still has the right to take it back?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the contract read to me. It's like not necessarily take it back, but then you're going to have to, as the city of Charlotte operating that line, will have to make accommodations to move over the commuter train if at any point the Norfolk Southern folks need to use it during any time they want to operate. So it's really jacked up.
That's interesting. So they pay $91 million for the right to do it unless the people that currently had it decide they want to do it at some point in the future.
Right. Now, they will still allow them access to the road or the railroad, but
they would have to share the line with
They would have to share the line, which means, what does that mean? Double tracks and all these other places and more purchase of right-of-way and
more cost
and more time
I hope
and more delay.
The new cost is at Norfolk Southern's expense. No, it would be back on the So let's hit this conversation. Maybe we go back to the boring company conversation.
That's where it needs to go,
because that gets all the drama out of the conversation.
Correct.
At a fraction of the cost.
Correct. It does. So just imagine a world where the state already owns all of the right-of-way, which they do below 77 and 21 and 150. And
so all the state roads.
All the state roads. Could you imagine a world that if you were to not have to do right-of-way purchase underneath all state-owned assets, you could bore under there. So what did I tell you that was the biggest headache in construction? Right-of-way acquisition is one, and utilities. Right. You wouldn't have to move a darn utility.
Right.
Yeah. Doesn't it make sense?
It makes complete sense. So why are we not talking more about this?
Well, did you see the 77 South contract kind of go sideways for the toll lane? That they had a significant community pushback in regards to the construction of those toll lanes because, and I can understand, there's some legacy communities within the South, Charlotte Center and South would have complete disruption with having a decked thoroughfare going through their backyard.
I did see that. A lot of elevated bridges, right?
Yeah, right. Because, again, the design process was that way because the right-of-way acquisition for that project alone was over $1 billion.
Just for the right-of-way, not the road.
For the right of way, not even moving the utilities or the homes or all the stuff that will have to go with that. I mean, it's just mind-numbing that why have we not looked at emerging technologies? So we saw that some of the community leaders had asked about a tunnel. Mm-hmm. Why not?
Right. And I'm going to agree with a lot of the skepticism is I was skeptical until I sat through the presentation.
Yeah.
And I saw the facts and the data, and it made sense.
It just makes sense.
I mean, it's hard to say no.
I know.
And especially you may say this is sci-fi, this isn't real, but it's out in Vegas and it's in other towns. There's other communities that are starting to study this to implement this.
Right. And the neat thing about it was at the time that we invited the Boring Company, a few of us senators invited the Boring Company a couple of years back to fly into Charlotte and to give us the presentation, and they did. Mm-hmm. And as the contractor, they wanted to have the proof of concept on the Eastern Coast. So they would give you 3 funding options. They would do it. You would pay them as a general contractor, and then you would operate it. Okay. So there's 1. There was 2. You could do a toll or a public-private partnership, so you would do this just like we have. Right. Or 3, they would pay for the whole darn thing, and then of course, then they would own it, and they would come back and get their revenue through tolls. So there were 3 options for there, and the one is oh my gosh, no taxpayer money for the use of this is a very enticing idea, right? Yes. I mean, that's just kind of a thought that so Brad, I also want to go back to this because this is something that really irked me before I understood transportation funding. So when we were going to school back in the yonder years.
Yonder days. Yes,
when I first left Lexington, I drove down 85 to get to UNC Charlotte, and they were building I-85 at that time.
Right.
And if you go 85 now, it's free.
Do you remember those 2 little, that narrow? I always hated that narrow bridge on 85.
Yes,
it's been rebuilt since then.
Yes,
I got caught. You get beside a truck and
I got caught in a snowstorm, an ice storm on that bridge one time in my 1981 VW Rabbit.
Oh my gosh!
It was. I know that bridge well. Yeah, I do. But I would always lament the fact that 85 had these beautiful ribbons. Again, 4 lanes, not as much traffic as 77. Why do they get it? Why do they don't? Well, it goes back to our conversation earlier. That was also a political push because you want to go from Charlotte to Raleigh.
Correct.
So that was before Governor McCrory and got the STIP thing going on.
They forgot about us up here at the lake, right?
Always.
Yep.
Always. We have really always just had some significant transportation challenges. But now that we look at it, and I told you it was $1 billion for right-of-way acquisition.
Just for the right-of-way. And I can only imagine the cost of those elevated roads.
Yeah. So in that STIP 10-year program, then every 2 years, they have to review the projects in the program and they rescore and, all the stuff. Right. So last time around, which was just the end of last year, there was $144 billion worth of requests statewide.
Okay.
For 10 years. Competing for, all we had available was $32 billion for 10 years of projects.
Whoa.
Across the state. So how in the heck are you going to buy $1 billion worth of land just to construct a project for free so that South Carolina folks, who are, by the way, North Carolina tax evaders, then they can get to and from Charlotte very easily, right? I mean, so it stinks. Like 85 and Rowan, they get it all and all this other stuff, but let bygones be bygones. But right now, when you're all fighting for that same pot of money, that very small pot of money, when we talk about transportation, you just can't find $5 billion. No. It would sink the entire DOT budget across the state.
And that's one thing a lot of the residents don't understand. I know you try. You do a good job trying to explain to them. Is the whole state has needs. So we need 150 needs to be widened, but every other town has they may not have a 150, but they have priorities that they want. So everybody's fighting for the same pot of money. Mm-hmm. So. I know how close we were to losing 150 funding, and I know you and Lisa and a couple other people were very strong advocates that got that across the finish line and saved it, because I know we technically were. It was 22% over.
We were going to get booted. Yeah,
we were going to get booted, and you guys fought for it.
Yeah.
So when people in the future go to the polls, they need to remember that you were one of the ones that got 150 across the line for them.
Almost in tears. If you know me, I cry in anger, not out of sadness. Called the Secretary of Transportation, and I said, Secretary Boyette, I cannot go home. I will be kicked out of Mooresville. They will burn my house to ground if you guys punt this one more time. And I was so grateful that they worked with me. And
again, 1987, Bill Thunberg confirmed that was the first discussion on widening it. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So we have transportation projects that are important all across the state. Let's not also think or forget about the tremendous strain that to the budget that the Hurricane Helene had actually put on there. Now that's a lot of federal dollars that will be reimbursed for, I think I just heard that the I-40 corridor, that bridge going over, is going to be a $3 billion repair.
Wow.
So thankfully the federal government reimburses up to 90%, but 10% of that is us. But then it takes the federal government sometimes years to reimburse the state for these type of things. So now we're trying to juggle the reimbursement, or they are trying to juggle the reimbursement and figuring out to make sure 150 gets delivered. And it is we need a technology disruptor like the boring company.
But then too, coming back, and I know we're going to run out of time here to go to the next segment, but the way we collect revenue to fund the roads. Mm-hmm. We use a gas tax,
right?
And some say that we're moving towards electric. Maybe we're moving to other methods. I don't know. You talked about maybe flying cars,
yes,
and autonomous cars, and those will probably be electric. So, So how do we fund it? How do we adapt to a changing landscape in actually transportation to still pay for these roads?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that was the whole point of the NC-10, and thankfully we got some things going, and we will continue to fight for some more, common sense solutions to very technical problems. But if you keep it simple, then most everybody can understand.
All right. We'll continue the conversation. This is Brad Howard with Senator Sawyer, and we'll be right back. And we're back on Beyond the Blueprint. I'm Brad Howard, joined by Senator Vickie Sawyer. Mecklenburg County voters approved a 1% sales tax projected to generate $19 billion over 30 years, with 40% that's dedicated to the rail. The red line must reach 50% completion before the silver line or the gold line are able to proceed. Mm-hmm. But here's the question. Iredell County didn't vote on the sales tax. Mm-hmm. So where does the funding come from if it extends past Davidson?
Mm. Yeah, that is a great question. And I can see a bunch of lawyers getting very intricate about that. And also, what does that word completed mean? Now, you've been there, Brad. What does completed mean? So first of all, before I say anything disparaging about the red line, I, along with you, have been anxiously awaiting a commuter train since 1998 when they first told us that it was going to happen. And
I remember.
The mayors said that they got on that train line and they were heading to Charlotte, and it was going to be a great day. So I, in concept, really do support that option, that transportation option. I am extremely concerned with the nuts and bolts of the construction of the red line. We talked about right-of-way acquisitions, utilities. I've seen in other areas across the country, I think in Maryland and a few others, that tried to do surface transportation like this. And all of the projects, or most of the projects, collapsed under the weight of the cost.
Right.
I think one, from memory, forgive me if I'm wrong, is like $648 million a mile.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it collapsed under the weight of that. And when you are talking about something like the Boring Company, and this is old dusty numbers, but at the time it was like, a mile could cost up to like $16 to $20 million. Versus
you could build the whole thing for what a mile of the other line cost.
You could totally reconnect the entire city of Charlotte.
Right.
For the same cost of what one line would be.
Correct.
Yeah.
And actually get people to the airport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we need to really have serious discussions about this. And I find so many times often with transportation, because I'm not an expert, I'm just one of those like nosy moms who just reads a lot about stuff, that sometimes when I talk about these things, I get dismissed by, oh, she's just elected. She doesn't know what she's talking about and all these other things. But I'm here to tell you that we have to think outside of the box. We are growing so fast. And we are structurally behind in funding. There is no way, unless we go out and do a huge tax increase on you and everybody else, to where we can make up that $144 billion worth of needs. And now you're just talking about transportation. You know, that same amount, and some people even say $300 billion worth of needs in wastewater and sewer issues across the state. Now, remember, we have legacy wastewater systems that were funded by grants from the feds back in the 40s and 50s, and some even went from FDR when he was doing the whole thing. And so we, in some areas, have, like, especially those poorer areas that we had talked about earlier on the show in Eastern North Carolina and Western North Carolina, some of them still have like wooden like sewer lines, like just old legacy things that are happening. And we talked about them not being able to even provide public services like EMS and teachers, much less a $200 million wastewater facility.
Right.
So there's a lot of constraints on our budget that is a lot deeper and more systematic. It keeps me up at night. Like, how do you pay for that all? And really, some of the things that I am very frustrated with that we haven't addressed at this General Assembly is to really sit down and talk about these things, about what people really want. It's one thing to fuss and fight about if you're a Republican or a Democrat and, oh, you said this and you said that and you like these people or that. All that stuff is just baloney. I don't even enjoy that. I want to get down to the real crux of the issues of what you and I face every day, which is water, sewer, good education, and we want to get back and forth to live, work, and play.
Solve the problems.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Stop arguing. Just fix it.
Just fix it.
Make a decision, move forward. So back to that, about making decisions moving forward. So at the CRTPO, which is the Charlotte Regional Transportation Organization, Charlotte holds 31 out of 74 weighted votes, which is about 42%. Iredell County's allowed 3 votes. Mooresville gets 3. Statesville gets 2. Troutman gets 1. Add it up, and we're 9 out of 74. So how does that power imbalance affect our region? And then we'll have a second time. Well, let's answer that one first.
And congratulations to Town Commissioner Dana, who won. People spoke and there was elections, but we really lost a great public service and servant in transportation when we lost Lisa Qualls. She was the chair of the CRTPO, and she was up for another term. Did a really good job and really helped to balance out that equation. Right. So secondly, she needs help on the board. I'm very grateful that we have some of our folks from the town of Troutman and from the city of Statesville who attend. We have some others who don't attend who are appointed to that board, and it's a big deal. Like, if you're going to get elected, then show up.
Right.
Like, if you want the job, then do the job. And we unfortunately have had some people in the past from our region that have not chosen to go to that. And it is very, very important that that we have the representation that we need.
Right. So when talking about that is, it may not, in certain areas of the county, the transportation may not seem as important, but for you talked about living on Perth Road. For those of us that live and work and our whole lives, predominantly revolve around the last 5 miles of Iredell County.
Right.
That's 120,000 people. It's really important to us.
Right.
Right.
And it may be important to you if you're have an accident on 150 and you need to get to the hospital quickly. It doesn't matter if you live in Harmony or if you live in City of Charlotte. You want to get to the hospital, and you need good roads in order to do that.
Right.
And I don't understand just the blind ignorance on that when it comes to transportation. It needs all hands on deck and everybody who has a voice using that voice.
Yeah. So, so for listeners right now, if someone in Mooresville, Statesville, Troutman wants to make sure their voice is heard on transportation, what do they do besides call your office? Yeah,
so if you have questions and concerns, definitely an email is better, because then I can track it better through my assistant, and I have facts. Also, facts are important because you can tell by my voice, I'm an emotional person, so I appreciate emotions. But when you're talking to transportation and a bunch of engineers, Emotions, it just doesn't register on their scale, right? There's just nothing in their world that says emotions. So if you can give me factual data, then I will either try to have the answer for you or find the answer for you. You also have House members, but also remember, I don't actually go out and build the road myself, nor do I have any help in designing it I don't pick up a shovel. I don't call the contractors. That is actually the governor of North Carolina. He controls the DOT. He does. Appointed DOT board members.
That's right.
And so you have a DOT board member as well. So if you want direct contact to the governor through the DOT board member appointee, then you have a great one locally who is actually the chair of the board now with Tony Lathrop, Chairman Lathrop. You have everybody has a districted rep. Contact your DOT board members because they have direct lines directly to the agency and can get you spot on answers. And I can try, I just have to go through another layer and I'll happily do it. But those are the people who actually approve the projects, who fund the projects, who see what's going, who do the 10-year construction plan. Those are the ones who are your elected representatives or appointed representatives by the governor to represent you.
And they can just go to the DOT website and find out who their local board member is and send them an email. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And then kick it over to you to get another voice in the conversation.
Absolutely.
So let's.
And then also, I do want to also mention the DOT is doing better, and we're actually going to fund something more, and kind of been on them to do a portal for constituent concerns. But there is something that you can do. It's called NC Go, and it's a website funded by NCDOT, and it will show you that 10-year project that we were talking about, and when those projects should be. So if you have a question about that, you can always go to this NC Go. And look at it, and it will show you in your region. It has an interactive map. It will show you where and when. Supposedly, it's not always updated, but when those projects will be going, or resurfacing projects are going, or if you hit a pothole,
it's a great resource.
Bust your car, you can. I mean, there's all kinds of things on the NCGO website that you can use.
We'll tag that in the link on the social media post. Yeah, absolutely. Let's hit. We have a couple more questions we need to hit, and we're going to run out of time here.
And I'm long-winded.
So
sorry.
No. The Central toll lanes.
Yes.
One of the biggest issues looking at long-range planning is we were opted out, or we're not allowed to widen other north-south highways for 50 years. We're about 10 years into that contract right now. So residents in Mooresville, Statesville, and northern Iredell feel the burden every day. So what can the legislature realistically do about the existing Central contract? No widening roads. So
legislature cannot do a darn thing about a contract that has already been signed off on by the governor.
Correct.
You can't renegotiate a contract after it has been signed. We learned that in 5th grade, right? You just can't do it. You made a promise, whether you like that promise or not. The DOT signed on with Central for that.
Right.
There is a caveat, though, that's very interesting to me, and that DOT, again, and their board is privy to this information, and I'm not. So when I'm telling you this, I'm just kind of like the nosy neighbor.
You're the nosy neighbor outside looking in.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I want to know. But they haven't invited me over for a house party. So, but I will tell you this. So Centra, I'm sure, is going to be one of the folks who will be trying to bid to get 77 South.
Correct.
One of their ideas is that they, in DOT, was to allow tractor trailers or large big rigs to use the toll lane. Now,
that was always the selling point, that they weren't going to put trucks on there.
Man.
Right.
I know.
So how do you tell that to the people? How do you tell that to the people?
Another 5th grade lesson or kindergarten lesson, I mean, no, that's the thing. They're doing exactly what they shouldn't be doing, which is renegotiating something that should have been in there. However, I know we got to get going, but there is this unique opportunity for the governor and the DOT board to reopen that contract, to handle things like that, and I'm telling them they've got to put a cap on these tolls. It is absolutely outrageous cost.
It runs. I notice sometimes I'll drive by at $6 a segment.
Yeah. That is predatory.
Yeah.
So
it could cost you $35 to get to Charlotte.
Right. So if they do want to do this toll lane with trucks, and Centra wants to reopen that contract, then the state and the governor have a great opportunity to renegotiate.
Right, and do it like commercial real estate pays the bills, and the cars are your residential, right? So take the trucks and try to offset that to keep the rates lower.
I agree.
Yep. So,
I agree.
Yeah, so we're gonna now we're gonna take a break. Thank you so much.
Brad, it was so good.
I know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Senator Sawyer. Thank you for taking your time on Beyond the Blueprint. We walked through today how roads get funded, how infrastructure decisions are made, and what our listeners can do to make their voices heard, from I-77 to NC-150 and everything in between. This has been Beyond the Blueprint. I'm Brad Howard. Thank you to Senator Sawyer. We will see you next Friday at 3.